Abba Ephraim Okon, male, APP, 123 votes. Ekpenyong Akaniyene Epion, male, DP, 141 votes. Okon Uko Hussein, male, LP, 4,746 votes. Number 12, Akwa Don Edenye John James, male, NNPP, 12,509 votes. Ethan Guber Basi, male, NRM, 861 votes. Eno Umo Basi, male, PDP, 356,348 votes. He can name Sunday Francis, male, PRP, 288 votes. Udo Imam Monday, female, SDP, 442 votes. Akpan Albert Basi, male, YPP, 136,262 votes. Thomas Isikat Ogan, male, ZLP, 728 votes. That Eno Umo Basi of PDP, having satisfied the requirements of the law, is hereby declared the winner and is returned elected. Signed, returning officer. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for witnessing the state collation of the just concluded 2003 governorship election in Akwa Ibom State. Thank you so much, members of the press, Nigerian Union of Journalists, thank you so much. And thank you so much, members of the ICES, Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security. Thank you for all your efforts and all you've done for the elections to be successful. God bless you all. Thank you so much, all the party agents here representing the political party.
Hey, let's come here now.
And also ensuring that the maintain peace for this exercise to be accomplished. Thank you so much.
It's a live system.
On behalf of the resident Regional Commissioner of INEC Akwa Ibom State, in the person of Dr. Cyril Guber, I thank you all. Thank you, and thank you, and thank you.
Please. So who go and bring him for me? Who bring him for me? Oh, Inukabi.
Gentlemen, ID. Please, excuse me now.
I don't want that interview. It's live.
Gentlemen, media.
Hey, hello.
Correspondents.
Please, one signature. Okay. Come.
Since you're blocking the camera.
Gentlemen, please allow us few questions to the state agents on the PDP.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, let's be very for the members of the President to clear the road for the members of the President to the interagency coordination security.
Please light.
These were the people that provided us security and the environment.
Also, my camera is live.
Please,
you are covering AIT.
Let's do it outside. Let's do it outside. No. We are doing it here. Let's go.
They just know one side.
My name is Engineer Uwemo Koko. I'm the agent of the People's Democratic Party. I want to thank God today for the victory of the People's Democratic Party in Akwa Ibom. I said before that PDP is the landlord in Akwa Ibom. We did it on February 25, and we have done it again today. Pastor Umar Basieno is now the governor-elect of Akwa Ibom State, and he will be sworn in May 29, and he will be there till May 2031. I want to thank all Akwa Ibomites. I want to thank the security men. I want to thank His Excellency, the Governor of Akwa Ibom State, who has created an enabling environment for peace to reign, for a peaceful election in Akwa Ibom. I want also to thank all other contestants that have shown sportsmanship in this contest. I want to take the result back to my principal and the party, the chairman of the party, for onward transmission to the governor of Akwa Ibom State.
As it is with culture and politics, results of elections are always contested in court. Is your party and your principal ready to defend the results of this election if he is taken?
You have seen the pattern of the election. All the agents have signed. You have seen even the APC agent has signed the result. All other agents have signed except one.
So now what are we expecting from PDP?
That will be my principal, the governor. Will address Akwa Ibom on that.
Which party?
Yes, I represent the People's Redemption Party.
Okay. So what's your take on this election of results?
Well, election, you know, in every election there must be a winner and there must also be a loser in the election. So whoever had won today's or yesterday's election, which has been declared today, is an Akwa Ibom son. So I think it's a victory for all, not victory for one. And I also want to use this opportunity to call on the winner to be magnanimous in his victory by making sure that no matter what anybody does during that campaign and whatever, I think as a father, he's now a father, to lead the people of Akwa Ibom State, he should try and make sure there is a proper reconciliation and bringing them together for the success of the state and Akwa Ibom people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Ibom is the name. I am of the YPP, state agent.
You heard the results of yesterday's election as conducted by INEC in Ibom State. The candidate was declared. Okay, there's no loser, there's no vanquished. What do you make of the victory?
No, say what is in your mouth. Be free.
What do you make of the victory of the PDP candidate?
Well, the victory, will you say victory? And I will say no, reason being that all of our predictions and all of our cry to INEC, they've all seen the light of the day. And how will you expect me to endorse or append my signature to elections that the blood of the innocent Akwa Ibom might be shed on the cause of exercising their civil rights, and where people will refuse to go in and vote? And then you call that victory? There's no victory there. To me, if you ask me, I want to be very realistic with you, it's an outright abuse to democracy. It's a complete negation to what democracy stands for. And so therefore, as the Young Progressive Party, we'll seek to redress it in the law courts and then reclaim our mandate. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. In Akwa Ibom State, the Independent National Electoral Commission has announced that the total number of registered voters to be 2357418, and the total accredited voters is 657959. The INEC Commission has announced the governor candidate of the People's Democratic Party of 354348, followed by the YPP, the Young Progressive Party, with a total vote of 136263 in person of Senator Basi Halbert. Then we also have the APC candidate, which is the All Progressive Congress, with a total of 129602 votes. We also have the NNPC and other parties to follow. Thank you for today's collation of results. We will bring you more updates on the electoral updates and commissioning of, we will bring updates of election reaction. My name is Esther Otoyo. I remain your presenter here at Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State. Enjoy the rest of our programs on Spectrum Television and follow us on all our social media handles at YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Glad to have you back on the Spectrum TV Nigeria Decides 2023 studios, where we have good news trickling in from the Collation Center at Odo Doma, where we, of course, can confirm that Professor Emmanuel Emalije has announced Pastor Umoino as the duly elected governor of Akwa Ibom State after he polled a total number of votes that amounted to 354,348. That is 354,348. My name is Xavier Robert, and of course I have my colleagues right here with me, Janice Cobhams and Raymond Ita. What do we make of all this, of this development so far?
Well, it's been a very, very torrid exercise, the course of the electioneering period, beginning from February 25 to yesterday's exercise. But I think one good thing most persons should pick up from today is that we had the announcement a day after the polls, unlike the presidential election that took a good number of days. I would say by projection of political analysts and onlookers, the result would not really come as a surprise to many because the PDP has held sway in the state since 1999 up until date, and the indices were looking in their favor as far as the expected outcome of this result is concerned. We had Barrister Clifford here a short while ago, and he said, look, everything must count. Okay, it's not just about enjoying the goodwill of the people. You know it's election, you know it's politics, so politicking constitutes a greater part of the job that needs to be done if you hope to get the result that you want. And I think no party in the state has done it better than the PDP.
Well, I also think that, like Raymond had said, you know, it wasn't unexpected, knowing fully well that PDP had held sway in Akwa Ibom State for a couple of years, and like a lot of people here in Akwa Ibom would say that traditionally Akwa Ibom State is a PDP party, it's more like a religion. But we thought at some time that the narrative was going to change because of all the political, you know, how do I put it now, deviations that we had, you know, a lot of breaking outs from the People's Democratic Party. And we would also say that most of the people that broke out from the People's Democratic Party, you know, to also go to other parties to vie for that particular position as the #1 position in Akwa Ibom State, the gubernatorial seat. We also had very strong contenders, the likes of Obong Basi Albert, the likes of Akani Imo Udofia, and even what you call him now, the Labour Party guy. We were also looking,
Peter Udo.
Yeah, Peter Udo, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. We're also looking at a situation where, you know, what played out for the Labour Party during the presidential elections was going to play out again in Akwa Ibom State. Obviously, it was said that Labour Party, you know, won the elections in Akwa Ibom State, even though it wasn't given to them. And we were also trying to see a situation where, you know, the likes of the Labour gubernatorial candidate here in Akwa Ibom State was going to ride on the wings of Peter Obi, you know, to win the elections. It was like a mantra. We were also looking at that coming in. But when you look at the results in Akwa Ibom State, you see that Labour Party did not even come third, you know, looking at the results so far. But one would also say that it wasn't going to come as a surprise if someone like Umoino wins the election. Of course, we have the incumbent, and he would do everything possible to make sure that he has a successor in the person of Umoino.
Okay, as a way of bringing you up to speed to the way the results trickled in, we have that Party A had 437 votes, Party AA had 181, AAC had 393, ADC 1685, ADP 642, APC 129602, APGA, that's ABGA 311, APM 381, APP 121, BP 141. We have NNPP here 12,509, NRM 861, PDP, the big one, 354,348. Now PRP came in with 288 votes, SDP 442, YPP 136,262, ZLP 728. Now looking at these results, I can't help but notice the disparities in terms of the weight the PDP has been able to poll in terms of the number of votes that have been awarded to them compared to what we are recording for the YPP candidate, which is Senator Bassi Albert, polling 136,262 votes. How do we reconcile this? Do we really think that it measures up to what was expected? Because from the feelers in town, we expected Senator Bassi Albert to really, match up with what was expected in terms of the election results.
So this is more like you saying that, the PDP in Akwa Ibom State gave a landslide victory, if we're comparing it to what the likes of Senator Albert Bassi now got. But when we look at street credibility and all that followed, just like you said, looking at what was obtainable on the street, a lot of people would say that Oba was more of a popular person. Oba was more of someone that had the street acceptability, and we didn't see that coming for Umoino at all. But again, what do we expect? I think I'll leave it at that. What do we expect from a government that is incumbent and is, deliberate about having a successor?
I also feel that the fact that there was a large voter apathy today also contributed to the figures that we've seen here. I think a lot of persons were dissatisfied with what they saw on February 25, and they just felt, what's the essence of going out to vote when our votes will not count, or when there's already a flurry of reports coming in that INEC must have been compromised. Beginning from February 25, everything dates back to the February 25 elections. And I think it all equally made or marred the outcome of the governorship polls we saw today across the country, not only in the Akwa Ibom State. The figures here, for me, they still appear that, as Xavier used the word, the disparity, especially with the APC vote. 129,602, while the YPP who came in second had 136. That's roughly around a 7,000 plus distance between the second and the third placed parties. Now you look at the APC and the timing of Akanudofia's introduction into the polls, considering he had court cases to deal with to authenticate his candidacy of the APC. At what points did he have to go around campaigning, as the YPP and the PDP had clearly done over the months? In fact, right after the primaries of their respective parties, he had little or no time. In fact, the judgment validating his candidacy came a week before the election. So at what time did he have to mop up as much as 129,602 votes, even in the face of the alleged irregularities that were recorded in yesterday's exercise? Well, we cannot start now to claim that maybe INEC adopted the results, for instance, to favor the PDP, but we can't close our eyes to the indices that we have on ground as well. When you hear reports about the strongholds of some political parties where people were intimidated not to vote for another party except the party that actually has a stronghold in that area. When you take all of that into consideration, it's understandable why you would have a result like this. But the difference here is we're not seeing figures skyrocketing like previous elections where the winning party would score as much as 1 million plus or 2 million plus votes. So it seems to me like this was a carefully orchestrated episode. Of course, the jury is still out on whether these insinuations are true, but we can only sum up, our own comments and our views and position on this election based on what we've seen. And I still have a strong feeling that the results coming out from the different polling units is not a true reflection of the votes that people actually cast.
Anyways, I also think that going by some of the reports we had yesterday of skirmishes in some areas, voter intimidation as well, and serious vote buying as well, it could lead us to this kinds of results trickling in, or final results that has been collated. But again, they'll tell you that in a typical Nigerian setting from 1960 up till date, there's never an election that has been devoid of some of those things that we have mentioned here today. So I just feel that if the parties involved in these elections feel that they are not satisfied with elections or the outcome of the elections, then like we would always say, and the president would always say, take your grievances and let the judicial system address it. But again, we come back to a situation where we have a judicial system that is not totally independent. And so you have the interferences. And so how do we say that, that we can actually put our minds to the court in terms of its, how do I put it now, in terms of, it's giving the right judgment at a time for us to be able to
apart from that, without meaning to pause you short, I was looking at the results from each local government area. For instance, in Ibom local government area, that's the stronghold of the YPP governorship candidate. The PDP won in the governorship election from the collated figures, but it's the YPP candidate who took the State House of Assembly elections. Now, that's funny for me. So when you look at all the disparities, it raises question. Yeah. In the Ibom local government area, for instance, the PDP also scored the highest number of votes in the governorship election, but it was the APC candidate who won the state assembly elections. Doesn't it seem like it's something that appears doctored? Because the APC, in Ibom, as we know it, is the local government of the APC candidate. So maybe helping him to save face that, okay, I've actually produced someone to go to the State House, applicable for the YPP. But in the governorship polls, the stronghold of the men who have commanded so much support and followership in those areas, they lost out. That's fishy for me.
Well, it could be fishy, it could seem fishy, but again, I think I was having an argument with someone behind, and the person said, look, we have come to a situation in Nigeria, or in the polity of Nigeria, where you have situations where people do not even go for political parties anymore. So you see people voting for individuals and not necessarily because this person belongs to this political party. Whether the person has the capacity to lead or not, we are going to vote for that person. So we've gone beyond those party lines. We've come to a situation where Nigerians will actually vote for people that they think that can deliver and, deliver the dividends of democracy, and not necessarily because these people belong to a particular political party that they belong to as well.
And I'm really hoping too that this is the dividends of the beavers coming to play, that we're reaping the goodnesses that the INEC promised us that we're going to see with the introduction of the beavers, where you get to see that the way the number of votes you were supposed to earn are going to be located to you. Let's just hope that that is what played out during the elections, and the different results that we have been able to collate and realize that the fact that the House of Assembly member of a particular location emerged as winner when the gubernatorial candidate failed to win that seat, that could explain that maybe the beavers actually, created that success for the candidate.
It's possible, Savior, but we're talking about court cases. I'm also worried about the post-election litigations that would follow. I'm already looking at the presidential election, when INEC said after granting access to the different political parties to inspect the beavers, it's going to happen state after state. I mean, we're talking about elections where over 25 beavers were likely deployed to a certain area, and we're talking 176,000 polling units across Nigeria. When do we start inspecting all of these beavers to, have a radical conclusion about the true state of this election before May 29, when the next swearing-in is going to happen? So we might have the lengthiest of all court cases post-elections in the annals of the nation's political history. That's what I'm envisaging anyway.
It's already apparent from what we saw from the Collation Center, the feeds that we were able to gather. Already party agents are, raining down hell and brimstone, how the whole process was not fair and free. But we believe that definitely in the coming days, statements are going to start trickling in. We're going to be seeing tempers flaring, but we hope that, like Janice rightly pointed out, whoever has grievances would try as much as possible to channel them through the appropriate quarters, so we don't end up heating up the polity.
In courts, and that's more money, Savior.
Definitely.
That's more money. You're going to have to spend money to win. Not everyone will enjoy the goodwill that, say, someone like Peter Obi had when so many sons were all clamoring to join his legal team for free.
Yeah, that's true. But again, let's even look at a situation where does it really, in Nigeria now, we see a situation where when a political party wins an election and that political party is not yours, you begin to say that the elections were not free and fair. But when once it is yours, whether they are skirmishes or they are violence or they are voter apathy or vote buying, for every other person, the election was free and fair.
It's a worry. And more disappointing is the fact that I feel with violence also recorded and a number of persons reportedly killed, I mean, it all amounted for nothing. If after all the messages of conscientization that INEC did prior to the election and also political parties, that people still resorted to taking up arms, you know, for the sake of driving their points or their message home during the election. But we just hope people can learn their lessons. And we're looking forward to 4 years' time again, 2027. The question will be, come 2027, what's going to be the level of political awareness and conscientization of Nigerians this time? Will we want to be interested in the process again? Well,
I think that's a big question, because even as at yesterday, far away in Bayelsa State, there was a particular market now that the market women decided to come out to sell, not minding the fact that there were elections, you know. And I think I also heard them saying, look, so far so good. Their votes are not being counted. You know, politicians do not respect their votes. So what they voted for during the presidential election is not what they got. And so because of that, they're not interested in the political process anymore. So let them just sell their market and take care of themselves and their children. So it brings us back to a situation where we are asking, how long will we continue to have this kind of politics being played in Nigeria? Will we ever, you know, get beyond politics of tribalism? We saw what happened in Lagos yesterday. So many deaths recorded and so many violence in different parts of Lagos.
I will likely have results announced from those places. Of course,
yes, of course. Babajide Sanwo-Olu has been announced. We've seen him dancing his victory dance and all of that. So do we, or will we in this country have a situation where we are saying that we are going to the polls and everything is going to be fair? Now, we've registered the fact that since 1960 up until now, we've not had a situation where we have like a very free elections where none of these issues or discrepancies are recorded. But when we say that we have them in over, when we say that we have them in surplus, then we say that we've not had a free, fair, credible elections. But if it is minimal, yes, we know that, okay, all these things can happen. And like a lot of people have said, when the president said he was going to give Nigerians a free, fair, a credible election as his parting gift to Nigerians, leaving his footprints in the sands of time, a lot of people have also made mention of the fact that this is the worst election ever in the history of Nigeria.
Janice, I like the fact that you factored in the role of the president in here. I've also been having, you know, sleepless nights about the role of the president in this election. As you rightly said, he promised us a free, fair and credible polls, or as a parting gift, to leave down a legacy for Nigerians and for posterity. I like making reference to the US Africa Leadership Summit, where President Biden described him as a model of democracy. I don't know if that has informed Mr. Biden's decision not to call Bola Tinubu to congratulate him yet. I mean, the APC were bickering about this within the week, that they were yet to see a congratulatory message from Biden to Tinubu, and they felt he needed to do so, even though the U.S. State Department had already called him to congratulate. But maybe Mr. Biden is equally watching. And the fact that the president has, you know, had some kind of funny body language with all of these exercises. Most of the things just said so far has been, you know, more or less showing support for his party, the APC, and I would not be surprised that he has done so. But when he has said, go to the court if you have grievances, we all are watching, because I like to think that the president showed us something, that he could choose to disrespect a court ruling and also obey it with a narrow redesign policy. So what will he do with the elections now that we know the matter will be taken to court and final judgment would have to come from the Supreme Court? The same Supreme Court, he refused to hit to the directives twice until the third time of asking. So I think the president is just doing what he said about himself when he came into office, that he belongs to everyone and belongs to no one. And I also submit that I think the fate of this country rests in Mr. President's hands.
I'm really also hoping, keenly hoping, that we're not running in circles as a country, because if we want to go by what Mr. President told us when he took over power, he said it was for fighting corruption. So if the very corruption he aimed out to fight is going to be reintroduced into the system, that means the past 8 years were entirely a waste. So I would really expect, and we hope that Mr. President, with his good office, would be able to, find a common ground and see how the skirmishes that were inherent in the February 25 elections can be redressed. Like he insisted, yes, let's use the judicial system to see how we can, put things aright if there are things to be put aright. That would serve well for his legacy.
Saviour, I think let's even address that issue. Now, when the presidential elections finished and we had all the, comments and all the controversies and dust that presidential elections raised, I know that a lot of people and commentators were of the view that INEC should even go back to the drawing board. And more like go back to the drawing board, review all the things that even the international observers had said were wrong, had marred the presidential elections. But let's look at it from this angle. We have reviewed, according to INEC, they've gone to the drawing board, reviewed, but what did they do with the gubernatorial elections? Because some of the things that we complained about the presidential elections as discrepancies are the same things that are reflected in the Guber elections and state houses of assembly. It appears
even worse.
It appears even worse. So where does that leave us in terms of reviewing things? And then even talking about going to courts to seek redress, fantastic. We always go to courts to seek redress, but in the history of Nigeria, where have you ever heard that judgment was given in court and a sitting government has been toppled?
Well, aside a few, one or two governorship cases
in Anambra State,
yeah.
But the presidential election
has never happened.
That's the apex.
It's never happened.
It has never happened indeed.
So, but what if we do have that this time?
Well, it would be
and you think that the president that did not obey the Supreme Court order and new Naira redesign
that's why I feel the president may be keeping his cards close to his chest, maybe not allowing anyone knows, what his plans are, because I think giving them away would make utter nonsense of his idea of leaving behind a legacy. He has to support, before the elections, the APC came out to say it looks like the president is not comfortable with Bola Tinubu's candidacy. And the president has to book some of the rallies that he would attend just to show that, yes, this is my party, the party that brought me to power. I have to support them. He congratulated Tinubu after the elections. And I think yesterday after he cast his vote, he also said he hopes his party, the APC, would win. Now, this is just a party man, supporting his own party. But as president of the country, he owes a duty to Nigerians to maintain some level of neutrality with the election. So I don't want to rush into conclusions yet that Mr. President would summarily hand over power to Bola Tinubu on the back of what has been one of the worst elections conducted ever in the nation's history. And maybe taking a cue from what Dina Melaya said, that if all things go as planned, that Bola Tinubu could be the third African president to maybe be sworn in, but not last long in office, or may not even be sworn in at all if he loses his case in court.
Now, if you say that the president shouldn't swear Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who won all under the umbrella of the All Progressives Congress, which is the party of the president, then what do you want him to do? Now, a lot of people have also come under the conversation or the sentiments that they do not want an interim government, so definitely, the president is left with no choice. He has also put up his handing over committee, and they have started this swung into action already to, hand over properly to the president-elect.
So can we now say it's a legacy in the mud for Mr. President?
Well, is it possible that our judicial system will be able to execute whatever it is, the litigations that we have on ground right now before May 29 when...
It's not possible because they've not even, the court has not even granted, or rather INEC has not even granted the likes of the Labour Party and even the People's Democratic Party the access to the Beavers machine.
Yeah, they said they were still trying to get all the documents from all the states before they can allow them access to the Beavers. I think that was after the meeting they had with the legal team of the Labour Party. And I'm just wondering, how do you start going over
1,700 and something
1,000 beavers in state after state? Because we're talking about the thorough, inspection. And I also asked the question about the position of reconfiguring the beavers before the elections to be fair, which was done already.
So where are these people going to get their evidences from? So
INEC claims the information from the presidential post are safe on its back-end server.
Exactly.
We'd like to believe that and take their word for it. But I'm more worried when someone like Jega, Professor Taiwo Jega, the former INEC chairman, just 3 days before the presidential post, came out to say that anyone anchoring their hopes on the validity of the beavers were doing so at their own risk, because he made it very clear that the beavers could be tampered with, they could be hacked, make no mistakes about that. And we saw INEC's data of just how many cyber attacks it experienced on that day. So how can we tell that when over 12 million plus attacks, cyber attacks alone, were recorded on how many beavers? Then who's to say that the figures there may not have been doctored? And that's why some persons are saying, looks like INEC had declared the wrong president.
Oh, wow.
Who knows?
I don't think INEC declared the wrong president. According to Mahmoud Yakubu, he declared who he thinks, or rather who, he has on his sheets to declare as the president-elect.
I think that's something Nigerians and the international community would be watching keenly, because so many of the irregularities that were captured, this happened in real time with footages, to buttress that, yes, irregularities were observed in places that the elections were still announced. I mean, Imo State, for instance, the presidential election, the town of Oguta, we had elections result announcement. Election did not even take place. In Ekiti State, what forced Dino Melaye and the Labour Party candidate to stage a walkout. Yes. The results did not just tally. The numbers did not tally. Let's say you have 100 persons accredited, and then the total number of votes cast is something around 130. I mean, this was enough to have cancelled the results outrightly, but Mr. Yakubu went on to announce it.
But he addressed the issue, and he said there was nothing like overvoting in Ekiti State. He addressed it.
So how then can we have... you can see why a lot of persons have said Yakubu should have been sacked or made to resign and not supervise this election. I would only give credence to the arguments that this was all a doctored piece by the APC. And that's why I said the president body language is confusing. We can't tell where it is actually shifting or tilted to. Because on one hand, I see this whole exercise as something that he was equally well aware of. The Naira redesign policy may just have been another orchestrated drama to divert Nigeria's attention from what they wanted to do. And that probably truncates this election and tilt it to the way that they wanted, because at that point everyone is more concerned about having access to cash. Why would you come out to vote today when you don't even have what to eat? You don't have money to take care of your needs.
But again, did Naira redesign and cash scarcity, did it deter Nigerians from coming out for the presidential elections? I don't think it did. But to a large extent, a lot of Nigerians came out.
They came out because they premised their faith on INEC's promise time and over that this election would be free and fair. So you could see the enthusiasm amongst people to get their voters card, get the PVC, go out and vote. But they didn't see that. That's why we have this low turnout today, or yesterday rather.
Honestly, I don't see how that cash policy has been able to influence the elections positively. I understand that one of the reasons the president gave for putting out or reeling out that policy at the time he did was because he intended to curb vote buying and all the irregularities that go on during elections, where politicians throw cash around and get people, sway people's interest into voting political parties that they naturally wouldn't have voted if not for the monetary inducement. But I think INEC really needs to step up if eventually they are going to still be allowed to run the helms of affairs when it comes to electoral process in Nigeria in the next 4 years. Because honestly, I was hoping that based on the standard that was put in place in terms of how the outcome of the Goodluck or Jonathan era came through, I was hoping that from that point on, we're going to see a real drastic change in terms of how our electoral system operates. But so far, it doesn't seem to be the case.
It's quite disappointing. And it would also, for those who have said maybe we need to reorganize how our elections are conducted. Sometimes you have, I think it's always been the tradition that the presidential posts come before the governorship elections, because many persons feel you don't give too much power to the governors. If you let them have their elections first, they now sit back and control how the results will likely go in their respective states should they win theirs. So that's why the presidential posts come the same day as rather a different day before the gubernatorial polls. So why not have both on the same day? And since we're gradually tilting towards having an electronic voting system, except that we just have 1 or 2 areas to patch up in terms of loopholes, it can be done. It really can be done. I don't want to believe that INEC, after all the noise they made in the lead up to the election and the backing that the Electoral Act gave to them, they had everything they needed to ensure that these elections work. And they had everything they needed as well to ensure that we could vote electronically and also transmit the result in real time, as Mr. Yakubu said. So all of this excuses that the Electoral Act also provided for manual transmission of results means you were actually nursing a plan all along, because I think the results should have been transmitted by now. We have 5G network around. Why not bring it into the country? I mean, for crying out loud, everything is in place to have allowed us have a seamless and smooth election. I just feel INEC were already compromised in the lead up to this polls. There's no other way to describe it.
You know, it's quite laughable when you say that INEC should, we are getting to a place where we should begin to even have electronic, a voting pattern in Nigeria. And I wanted to remind you again that when you look at all the monies that was budgeted for this particular elections, budgeted to INEC for the running of the elections, I think it amounted to 380-something billion naira, and INEC giving it all the promises, and even at the Chatham House, saying that everything has been put in place. If we cannot, in this level, handle an election successfully, what will now become of us when we even begin to try to, try to see that we do elections electronically? And then look at what happened to the beavers. We are having network issues. They say the beavers are not working, network is hinging or glitching, and we cannot, upload results to the server. So when do you think that Nigeria will be ready to begin to have elections that you can just sit at home and then do these things electronically?
I also like to factor in, I always tell people, you only allowed as much power as the people allow you. And I think that's where everyone is looking at now. The reaction from Nigerians. Yes, no one wants a chaotic situation.
The reaction from Nigerians will always be protests. Well, what other reactions do you want from Nigerians?
We're not calling for a protest that would obviously degenerate into a state of chaos and violence. But yes, everyone has that right to go out and protest. But the fear there is, wouldn't the government misinterpret this to mean that people are just trying to stir up problems and create a state of anarchy that would lead to the calls for the interim government, as some quarters have already posited? And so before you know it, the army and the police will be sent in to actually chase people away and all of that.
It's not even about the army and the police. We have seen situations. Look at what happened in Lagos yesterday. I like to bring that as an example. It is even young people, which means that hunger has been weaponized. It is young people that have been paid to go and attack their fellow young people as thugs. So we don't even need the armies and the police people to come to, scare people away. They will use your fellow young people against you.
I don't even think we are mature enough to reap the profits that comes out of protest, because definitely, like you said, these politicians are still going to be able to weaponize certain individuals, certain youths, pairing them, ganging them up against each other. They'll still end up bringing up their rhetoric, a narrative that would show that maybe the entire protests that have been flagged off by youths or whatever quarters that feel aggrieved is intended to, bring anarchy on Nigerians. So they wouldn't want to toe the line of, oh, this protests are basically aimed at putting or ensuring a change in the society, that end up thinking or making us believe that Nigerians, certain quarters are trying to raise anarchy or cause one problem or the other.
Well, Xavier, there are other ways and means
have we ever had in Nigeria that has not been hijacked?
We equally have other means of protest. I mean, what happened in the southeastern part of the country at the height of Nnamdi Kanu's arrest? The IPOB sit-at-home order, to an extent at some point, it was effective because the people of the Southeast felt aggrieved that the arrest of Nnamdi Kanu was actually targeted at them and trying to silence someone who was speaking or who was a voice for the people of the Southeast. So they decided to stay at home. It took the cries of the governors of the Southeast for people to start disobeying the sit-at-home order. Not because they were facing threats from the IPOB militia that if you come out, we're going to do this or do that. Though we had pockets of reports of unknown gunmen attacking people who breached the sit-at-home order. But the biggest reason why it failed, or stopped rather, was because the governors came out to appeal that economic activities were shutting down across the southeast, and they were feeling the brunt of it. That's why they came out to appeal. And that's why some of them eventually started making maneuvers to the presidency to release Nnamdi Kanu, which there was a court order to do so, but the AGF, Mr. Malami, refused to hit to that. Well, I was waiting for the presidency or someone from the presidency to come out and say, for the Nnamdi Kanu's case, we did not tell the AGF to disrespect the court's ruling as it did with the Naira swap policy. Because as far as we know, the Court of Appeal had granted bail to Nnamdi Kanu, but he's still in detention today. So I feel Nigerians have other means to actually protest
so
and
how
not necessarily take into the street.
How effective do you now say the IPOB movement is? How effective do you now say it is? It has not made any effect, if you ask me. The agitating for an independent country of theirs, has that happened yet for them?
Well,
and I'm happy that you talked
so,
about the economic effect that it's having on the southeastern states. Now, before we even begin to talk about the increase in fuel prices across the country, do you know that southeastern states have been buying fuel when a lot of Nigerians were buying fuel for as low as 190 something, 180 something? The southeastern states were buying for as much as 250 naira per litre. So the hardship that the IPOB movement has brought to the southeastern state is not compared to even the agitations that they're putting forward for.
Well,
and when do we think that they'll have to, get those answers to the agitations?
It's really questionable. We may not really arrive at that conclusion that majority of the Southeasterners were in support of that sit-at-home order by IPOB.
Or even the agitation of getting a country of theirs.
A lot of quarters were really against it because we began seeing how the whole thing turned into a violent array. People were being murdered because they went about their legitimate duties and they disobeyed the orders. So if that is the other way of protesting, personally, I would not encourage it.
So let's take our minds back to 2012. I would always remember this because it happened on New Year's Day when former President Jonathan announced the scrapping of subsidy. We all saw what happened. It took 2 weeks of nationwide protests to force Jonathan's hand to reverse that decision. So who's to say that it cannot walk again? The difference then was we didn't have Jonathan ask the police or the army to go out and prevents people from protesting. We saw people protesting for 2 weeks straight. Even President Buhari today was part of the leaders of that same protest. So
you see, it all boils down to the
leadership. So I'm trying to say that people can actually do it, but it's the government who has the wherewithal to say, allow people to vote or protest rather freely without any hindrance. The problem here for me is that you have hoodlums trying to hijack the protest, as we saw during the NSAS protest. And for all we know, it appears that most of those thugs who truncated that process were actually sponsored, as we've also pointed out, by those within the high places, the political elite, because they knew that the real people, the real Nigerians, actually wanted to effect a change with regards to what they were protesting for. And did we get it? Yes, there was a disbandment of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, even though we've had reports that most of them have been shipped into other units and are still operating today. But to an extent, the protests yielded some result. And in fact, it took the Lekki shootings to actually put a stop to that protest, not because the thugs or some thugs had also hijacked it. So we're not calling for that violent state of protest, but I think Nigerians can actually make a stand on this election and say, we do not want it, because as far as we know, you cannot govern dead bodies or animals. So are you going to kill everybody because they came out to protest an election that is clearly flawed? So I think people can actually make a stand, and legitimately too. And this is where we would know truly what the president's intentions are. Because if I see the Nigerian army or the police opening fire on people for coming out to protest about the result of this election, then it means we do not have leaders in place. But I also saw something on February 25 in Delta State. People went out to protest, the army was sent there, and the soldiers told them to go ahead with their protest. That's what we want to see, because it was peaceful.
Yeah, we also had that play out during the NSAS protest as well. where the armies were, you know, backing up until such a time where
so it was getting out of hand.
It was getting out of hand.
Which equally leads us to back to the answers. We know the army came out for the Upton's time to insist that they were not responsible for the Lekki shootings. So who were those dressed in military garbs and uniforms who came out there to shoot at unarmed protesters? And we've heard reports about fake military officers and police officers parading themselves during this election. So who's to say that someone couldn't have dressed up thugs to also go and carry out shootings there? When I got home yesterday, I got a report that they were shooting around my area. That's at Atana Fort in Uyo. And we're told they were shooting. The police van came in, but from the witnesses who were there were no markings or inscriptions to show that this was a police vehicle, no plate numbers. And from the shells that were picked off from the bullets that were fired, it didn't show that they actually belonged to the Nigerian police. I tried to reach out to the police PPRO, and he confirmed that he was well aware, because that incident took place just a few yards from the police headquarters. And he said, yes, he was notified about it. So when you have people come out from unmarked vehicles dressed as police officers, we cannot say it was the police who came in. Just like in Ibom, the reporter, the witness you brought on yesterday said policemen came in. We can't say for a fact that they were actually men of the Nigerian police force. For all we know, they could be thugs dressed in military uniforms to carry out this nefarious activity. So same could be applicable to what happened in Lekki, because if the army is saying for the Upton time that they were not responsible for that shooting, then it means someone else was. So what we should be praying for now is that the Nigerian government and all its apparatus to stand up to defend the people, because that is what they are duty bound to do.
Now, if the army is saying for the Upton time that they are not the ones that, you know, opened fire on armed Nigerians, then 2020 till date is about 3 years. Why haven't we been able to point out the culprits? Why haven't we been able to do that? We have all the, you know, military apparatus to actually get intels as to who did. We saw armored tankers. We saw a lot of military gadgets, you know, at the Lekki toll gate, and the army comes out to tell you that they are not the ones. Where then did all of those people get such
how have Nigerians responded to that? The Labour Party won in Lagos State during the presidential polls. That was them coming out to speak, because the insinuations there was that the likes of Bola Tinubu and the Lagos State Governor Sanwo-Olu, who severally came out to say that no life was lost in Lekki in spite of the evidences that we had. It tells you why Lagosians decided they were going to vote out the APC. They voted against the APC in Lagos in the presidential polls, even though it was Tinubu who won. And yesterday, I like to believe that given their way, they would have voted out Governor Sanwo-Olu, except for the mirage of an exercise called election that we saw yesterday.
Yeah, definitely. All of that happening across the country towards the 2023 elections. But let's come back to Akwa Ibom State. Obviously, we have a winner for this elections, and we are going to be seeing him, you know, take on the mantle of leadership for the next 4 years. He has had several media rallies before the elections, and he has made so many promises to Akwa Ibomites as well. And I think one that really stirred, you know, the polity in Akwa Ibom State was his happy hour Friday thingy. So even though a lot of people have actually said that, you know, he did not put that into proper perspective, maybe he was also looking at, you know, trying to beef up the tourism sector in Akwa Ibom State and all of that. But he's promised a lot. We are going to be seeing him unravel more of himself and his leadership style and tendencies as well to Akwa Ibomites in the next 4 years.
Yes, I think that definitely what we should be seeing from now on, definitely a winner has been announced. So we're moving straight to governance. We're moving straight to him beginning to put things in place on how he's going to execute all the promises he's made to Nigerians, because he has made quite a lot. And I thank God that we are in an era where nothing you say goes missing. We'll definitely hold you back. We'll definitely remind you that, yes, you made these promises to Nigerians, you made these promises to Akwa Ibomites, and we expect that at the end of 4 years, you'll be able to at least accomplish, if not all, but 90%. We already have statements from Engineer Uwem Okoko, the PDP agent, who is already bragging that PDP is landlord in Akwa Ibom, that if the people interviewing him could remember that he had already made such statements, that definitely they are going to emerge winners. Well, congratulations to them. The issue now on ground is we want to see governance, we want to see leadership, we want to see a government that includes the people in whatever policies. Yes, we want to see that, and we want to see Nigerians and Akwa Ibomites being happy and truly reaping the dividends of democracy.
I couldn't agree less. Looking at the man Moino, I've known him for some time during my time in Ekate, where he has a bulk of his established businesses. And if you ask me, how successful has he been as a businessman? Well, the answer is yes, 100%, because it started with little or nothing. And I followed his story, and it's not just showboating. He was just someone who went into business and flourished as a businessman. The bigger question around his personality has always been his capacity to give, as most persons have always opined, with the reference to him as being a stingy man. I mean, I don't know what they meant about that. I'm not expecting to vote in a governor who's going to come in and splash all the state money for the essence of giving or landing, as was the tradition. It shows you the cliche that we have come to see as a norm and almost want to accept to be the norm always. I mean, something has to give. You know, the Ibom administration could be faulted in many areas, but I think for the first time in a long while, his administration came on and campaigned on issues that were different from what we saw in the past. Apart from people empowerment, and when you say people empowerment, to what extent? Does it mean giving people money? Can we say people getting married during your administration counts as empowerment of the people? I mean, how many persons will get married off you? And should it be from taxpayers' money? So if I'm paying my taxes and another person is getting married through my taxes, of what benefit is that to me? So maybe the implementation of his completion agenda and policies were actually, you know, not to the expectation of most Akwa Ibomites. But I think such a blueprint for me is fantastic. If you're telling us industrialization is the way to go, so let's have a coconut refinery, let's have a Jubilee syringe manufacturing plant, let's have this, let's have that. It may not be successful in your tenure, but he has laid the blueprints that I think other administrations should also build on. So I've looked at Moino, and I think, as you were saying, the problem with him perhaps is that he's not been able to explain in clear terms, but most of the times we've heard him speak, most of his programs and policies. But I've had the time to review them, including the happy hour syndrome, which, by the way, is obtainable in other countries across the world. It happens. It's not a new thing.
Of
it
course,
just,
yes.
a lot of Akwa Ibomites were just hearing it for the first time. And that's why it became something of a laughing stock. But that's an idea. The question here is, how will he follow up on it? He's always said, all I want to do, if you have an idea, you have a business, just come to me. Show me what your business is, and I'll give you the money. That, for me, is how governments should run, or how governance should be. You can't come to me and ask me for ₦1 million that you want to do business. And I tell you, what kind of business do you want to do? And you say, don't worry, just give me the money. I'll go make that business. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world, not even in the US. You can't go to, let's say, the governor of Texas and ask him to give you money because it's your commonwealth. I want to start up. No, you have to show me a blueprint of the kind of business you want to do, and the state government will support you. That's what Moino has always said in clear terms, and I'm saying this without any shred of bias. His mantra has always been, you have a business, we're going to support you, the government will support you, just make sure you identify something. We have to know what we're financing or spending money on. And I think that's quite better than someone coming to promise you heaven and earth. And then when he gets into office, it's about empowering the persons around him in the hope that those persons would go on to empower others. Governance doesn't work like that.
Yeah, man, I'm really hoping that your last submission would be the case, because usually what happens is that we see these men, they still end up taking care of the people around them first before they go to the issue of governance. But then I would talk with the issue of continuation. Yes, Governor Ibom has been able to actualize his aim of having a successor. Now it behoves on our governor-elect Moino to ensure that the projects that were embarked upon by Governor Ibom, which are yet to be completed, they say they are going to complete all the projects before, but we definitely know that it may not turn out that way.
It will not.
It will
None
not.
may not. It will.
So-
the Inverton road leading to us. I don't think that road will be completed before the governor leaves office.
So we are now appealing to Pastor Moino to ensure that projects that were embarked upon by Udom Emmanuel are completed during his tenure.
Sylvia, the point is you don't even have to appeal to anybody. Politics is continuum, right? So, but we have a situation in the country where a lot of times people put their successors because they want, okay, continuity. They bring all the mantra of continuity. But where have we ever seen that these successors come on board and actually continue? So that's why you find, you want to also tell me that some of the projects that someone like Gospel Akpabio built on were completed by Udom Emmanuel. But Udom Emmanuel was a success of Gospel Akpabio, right? So you have a lot of abandoned properties here, even in Uyo. And we are sitting down here and talking about continuity and appealing to somebody to continue. No, we don't have to appeal to him.
I think it's also good to
Governance
pinpoint
is
in what areas you can actually follow up on a project of your predecessor. For instance, let's look at the Ibom e-library.
Okay.
That was built by Governor Gospel Akpabio's administration. But I came to understand if statements made by Barrister Emmanuel Inoidem are anything to go by, he posited that it was a brainchild of the Atta administration, of which he had played some minimal role. And he said it was also his idea. He was allowed the wherewithal to supervise the construction of that project, but we know it wasn't functioning as a state-of-the-art e-library as obtainable in other parts of the world when that project was commissioned. But to some extent, I'll give some pass back to the Udom administration because they got that place up and running. I visited that place severally before Gospel Akpabio left office, and I know how many times I had to go in there with my own laptops. You know, and at the end of the day, with my own data, my internet and everything. So for me, it wasn't functioning, but it gave us the edifice. You look at the Gospel Akpabio International Stadium, that's a full-faced stadium. What we only have now is the football sector that was supposed to be an Olympic size. Can we reference that to be an Olympic size stadium? Well, the answer is no, because you only have the football pitch and the training complex, and that's all. What about the other three faces of the stadium? It's supposed to have a basketball court. It's supposed to have a volleyball court. It's supposed to have a swimming pool. And these are projects where money was voted, passed by the State House of Assembly, but we're only having one phase of that project on ground. So what do you expect, say, Governor Udom Emmanuel to come in and do? Assuming you had $1 billion or Naira voted for that project, so 500 million split into 4 of the phases, and then you only have one of them done. That means Governor Udom Emmanuel is going to have to approach the State House for a supplementary budget of close to half of that money to be able to complete the other 3 phases. So questions are going to be asked. What happened to the other parts that were already approved before? No one is answering those questions. Why? Is it because it's Senator Gospel Akpabio? No. I think we should ask those questions first before we talk about incoming administrations coming in to continue on the project of the others. The Science Park is still there. It was a project of the Victor Otta administration. So you're expecting Senator Gospel Akpabio to come in and just complete that project without knowing what happened to the funds approved initially for the first phase of this project.
So don't you see a pattern here, Raymond, that these successors find a way to, you know, cover the tracks of, of the leaders that put them there in office? Because, I mean, if that's not what was the case, these issues are supposed to be brought up.
Right.
We allocated a certain amount of money to complete a particular project. Why is it that we are lacking in funds to ensure that these other departments that were supposed to be active are lacking? Where are the monies? These are the questions that the governor-elect is supposed to answer. But you see that we tend to see that this whole successor thing could maybe be a game plan.
It's shrouded in secrecy because people, incoming governors or incumbent governors are more bent on putting successors because they want people that will close up their tracks. And that's just it. And let's leave the issue of continuity. Anybody bringing up the mantra of continuity is just blabbing. The truth of the matter is incumbents always want successors because they want people that will cover their tracks. And that's why we even have issues of most of the incumbents having issues, you know, along the lines with their successors.
Yeah.
Because at some point, your successors wants to stand alone and do his own thing or her own thing, and it becomes a problem.
So could we envisage that there could be a frosty relationship along the line between Pastor Moino and Governor Dom Emmanuel as
of course, we see that coming.
It's all going rosy now.
It has to
I
go
think
rosy.
The love affair between Governor Dom Emmanuel and Godswill Akpabio was more than this one. So definitely.
Well, maybe because former Governor Godswill Akpabio was still very much active in politicking. After leaving office as governor, he moved on to the Senate, where he was made the minority leader of the PDP in the Senate, and so he still had that overbearing influence within the national leadership of the PDP until he defected when it became news that he had a frosty relationship with Governor Emmanuel. But look at Governor Dom Emmanuel. He had all the power in the world to perhaps have gone for a senatorial ambition, but he chose not to do so, reiterating that he wants to return to the banking sector after his time as governor. That means he may not have an overbearing influence on what goes on in the state shortly after he leaves. I'm not holding forth for him, but that's what he has posited.
We really hope that that's the outcome, that he returns to the banking sector. We really hope that that's the outcome. Well, you are still hooked on to Spectrum TV Nigeria Decides Studios 2023 as we wind up the events of the election. Let's take calls. You can reach us through our social media platforms, and all of which you can find on spectrumtv.ng. And currently, the numbers are displayed on your screen. You could reach us through those numbers as we deliberate on the outcome of gubernatorial elections. You could call us from any part of Nigeria. Definitely let us know how the elections turned out in your location, who eventually emerged the winners, what parties have been elected into offices, and what are the expectations of Nigerians as this dispensation folds up.
Yes, interestingly, and we also know that results have been announced into the State House of Assembly polls that were conducted across the states. And one interesting thing we also have to watch out for is the emergence of a new speaker of the Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly, because as we know, it's Right Honorable INEC Bassey is headed for the Senate, having clinched the Uyo senatorial district seat, defeating the other parties who contended with him. And we also know the position of speaker has been zoned to Ikot senatorial district now. So looking at the returnees from the results collated, we have Prince Ukpong Okpabio from a Senedum local government council. He's a fresher. We also have from Orogonam Samson Idiong. We have Udeme Tong from a back local government area, and Ika local government area and Okanafon, I think, are the ones that completes the picture for Ikot senatorial district. So it's likely any of those names would be returning as the speaker of the next Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly. I'm sure at this stage politicking is going on, but some would say it could likely favor Right Honorable Udeme Tong being a ranking member as a returning State House of Assembly member, because the others are all freshers. So apart from him, the rest of them are coming to the State House for the first time. So that could be in some ways an added advantage for him to clinch the position of Speaker, since we already know who's the governor. And by the way, we have another female deputy governor in the States, dating back to the time of Lady Valerie Ebe. So congratulations to Akwa as well, we might say. And interestingly, I think we have a first female governor-elect in Nigeria, and that's in Adamawa State. I found that quite surprising, because we know Adamawa is the home state of the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar, but you have an APC female gubernatorial candidate winning, and that for me is something that should be celebrated across the board.
I think it does a lot of good in terms when it comes to the issue of women inclusivity in politics. I feel it all starts like this way. That could even be credited to why Umoino eventually emerged as our governor-elect, because the women would be, amen, we're having one of our own as the deputy governor, so why not? Why can't we, pull our weights around it? So I feel That is understandable and reasonable.
Yeah, Xavier, Janice, I think it's also a better time to equally talk about the people of ore extraction, because our forebears will always tell us that since the history of the creation of the state, it was founded on a triplet stand of the three major ethnic groups in the states, the Bibios, the Anangs, and the Oros. And the other two have had an opportunity to lead the state at different points, even from the military era up until the advent of democracy in 1999, where Victor Tad did 2 terms of 8 years, Gosulok Babio of the Anang extraction, Governor Dom Emmanuel, at the point where it was turned from the triplet stand agreement we were told was in place to the senatorial district formula, and the people of Oro felt they were shortchanged in 2015 when Governor Babio favored Mr. Emmanuel as opposed to picking someone from the Oro extraction. So now they're finally getting back into the scheme of things by having a deputy governor. Yes, she's not going to call the shot as having a governor, but I think they would equally have a sense of belonging as well, that they've been factored in to the mainstream of governance here in the state. And who knows, going forward, it's another time for them to throw their shots. When next the rotational system, comes around, Eket Senatorial District, it's easy to say they might, throw their hearts into the ring and perhaps get it this time. But I wonder what we'll say for the perennial contestants who have lost out again. The NNPP candidates, Senator John James Akwa, I think he might throw his heart into the ring in 2027 again, because it will still be the turn of Uyo Senatorial District.
Well, I'm really interested in what he has to say when we begin to get the statements from different quarters trickling in, especially because I'm sure he would definitely have something interesting to say as regards the outcome of yesterday's elections and the eventual winners that have been declared.
Okay, but let's still talk about the oral extraction. I think that it was also very political in terms of on the part of the People's Democratic Party now. There's been a whole lot of outcry by the oral people talking about marginalization and all of that, and also having a fair share when it comes to governance in Akwa Ibom State. So I think that politically it was very strategic, for the People's Democratic Party to choose their deputy gubernatorial candidate from that extraction, and a woman at that as well. I think it will also give the oral people a sense of belonging, and maybe for whatever reason, when it comes to another 4 years, they might also be having someone via for that particular position.
For the few who have had misgivings or grudges about the tickets of the PDP in this election, Pastor Moino and distinguished Senator Akwa, there's been a lot of talk about the ages of these candidates and factoring where the role of the youth, comes in with governance in Akwa Ibom State. Perhaps it explains why it seemed a core of the youth population in the state, and I'm basing my projections on what I saw during the campaigning and the rallies. A good number of them seemed to have been tilted towards the Young Progressives Party, because it was a party established for the young people. And so when they had a robust candidate like Senator Bassi Albert flying his ambition on the platform of the party, it was easy to see a lot of them come out to vote for him or support him. I don't know how much of that translated to the votes that were released, but that was largely because they felt the PDP were not heeding to the yearnings of the young people. Everyone keeps making reference to the youth bill that has been lying on the decks of Governor Dom Emmanuel for a good number of years. And I would be personally disappointed if Governor Emmanuel leaves office and doesn't append his signature to that bill, because for me it constitutes negligence to the needs of a very, very important sector of the state or other people. I mean, the youth bill, fund bill, would have gone a long way in addressing most of the concerns that the youths have had. It's simple. It's using taxpayers' money to take care of the needs of the people.
But again, would you say that Governor Dom Emmanuel not appending his signature to that bill has stopped a lot of young people from contesting? I don't think it has.
Well, I'm not even looking at it from the political angle, because already we have the Not Too Young to Run bill approved by the National Assembly. But there are needs that the youths have, and we're trying to shift away from trying to look at politics as an industry. That's something I think was allowed to grow unnecessarily during the last administration of Governor Godswill Akpabio, because everyone just wanted to go into politics, run for a position of councillor or whatever, so long as you held a political office. That's different from what this bill served, to do. And the fact that the State House of Assembly had approved it shows you they saw the substance in that bill and the development it would have brought to youth in the state by way of job creation, creating wealth opportunities for people to tap into, considering we have a good number of people here in the state. I don't know, maybe that's one thing the incoming administration of Pastor Moina would perhaps address.
But when you're talking about addressing some of these things, it brings us to the point where we begin to ask questions like how many of these policies have been done or appended to, and how many times have we seen proper implementations of such policies and bills. So it's not just about appending your signature to bills, it's about implementation and proper implementation, and seeing that at the end of the day, what this bill seeks to achieve is achieved at the end of the day.
Yeah, we hope that turns out to be the case. But just a reminder, you're watching Nigeria Decides 2023 from the studios of Spectrum Television. We're also broadcasting live on our sister platforms, Planet Radio 101.1 FM and Tankshow 102.7 FM, which you can catch via a live stream on any of these platforms. And we're winding up in a short while, and we've given you an opportunity to join in on the conversation. Feel free to reach out to us on the numbers displayed on your screen. We'd love to hear from you about your post-election reactions, because they're done and dusted, at least here in Akwa Ibom State and some of the parts of the country. So the 2023 polls we've been largely building up to and anticipating have come and gone, but we're sure the post-election reactions will likely continue until perhaps we see a new administration setting by May 29, 2023. Xavier.
Well, I really hope that moving forward, whatever would be the trajectories, the stories that would emerge from different quarters as regards the outcome of the polls in Akwa Ibom State specifically, it would bring about, at the end of the day, a form of unity from all quarters. Let's still try as much as possible to see how we can unify. And the project is Akwa Ibom. It's not about anybody. It's about seeing that we move this state to where we want it to be, and we are able to impact on the lives of citizens and bring about the dividends of democracy in all quarters. So I really hope that whoever are the victors or losers in these elections would find a common ground to see how they can integrate and move Akwa Ibom forward as one unity, so we could always reach those lofty goals that our forebears have always wished that we would be able to accomplish.
It equally leads me to the small matter of the political future of the losing candidates in this election. Oftentimes we tend to see some of them, defect back to the parties they came out from with respect to the YPP and APC candidates who both defected from the PDP, to contest this election. The APC is likely to continue remaining the biggest opposition party here in the States because they picked up some seats in the State House of Assembly, so did the YPP. But why I'm giving more opportunities or a chance to the APC to do better next time is because when you have someone like Senator Godswill Akpabio back in the Senate and is being projected in some quarters to be the next Senate president, if the APC's recent zoning is anything to go by, then I think such an overbearing influence would only help the APC going forward here in the state. But what about distinguished Senator Bassi Albert? I mean, what's his future politically? What's the future of the YPP in the states? I mean, are they going to fizzle out, or will they continue to hold on, knowing they still have voices in the State House now? I think they picked up about 2 seats from the State House of Assembly elections. If you want to grow, I think it's best that these two persons who are now the face of the YPP in the state do right by the party by continuing grooming young people, which was the very essence of establishing the party in the first place. So by the time we have, say, local government elections come around, though we know it's always another episode that is orchestrated by the ruling party, but future elections going forward, that they can learn their lessons first off from this exercise and try to see if they can do better next time.
And I feel the APC really need to put their house in order, because there are a lot of litigation, the issues that they had in court found a way to influence their performance during the elections. Who knows what would have been the outcome of this election if they were actually united from the word go. We only got to know about the candidate of the APC in a matter of days to the election. So I feel that in the next election that we'll be expecting in 4 years, they should try as much as possible to unify and put their house in order so that whatever outcomes would emanate from the elections in 4 years would be actually a true reflection of what is expected of the APC and any other party for that matter in Akwa Ibom State. I
also think that Umoino at this point in time has a lot to do in terms of building back Akwa Ibom State. I suppose that he's also going to be stretching forth the olive branch to other aggrieved parties to bring everybody on board. Just like Xavier had said, the project is Akwa Ibom State and not just an individualistic, nobody should have an individualistic approach to it. So I think that he has a whole lot, on his table right now to be able to bring everybody together again, the losers of this particular gubernatorial race, and see how everybody can come on board to work for the better good of Akwa Ibomites and Akwa Ibom State as well. All right,
so I think we're going to have to draw the curtains here. Xavier, it's been a really eventful coverage of this election from February 25 up until today.
I'm really grateful to God that we have our full house intact. There were no issues of skirmishes that actually affected any of the member of the team. It calls for celebration, Janice. Yeah, definitely calls for celebration. We saw what happened in Lagos yesterday to some staff of News Central and also Arise Televisions, where broadcasters and journalists were all they were attacked, and all of that. But we thank God that we have a full house. Everybody went out on the field yesterday. More like congratulations to the whole crew, Spectrum Television and our sister stations, Planets, and thanks you as well for doing a great job. But it's been a long day from February 25, just like Raymond had said, up until now. And we'll say that we're officially closing the Nigeria Decides Studio, Spectrum Television, today.
That's right, but do also stay on for more programming right here on Spectrum Television. Thank you very much to all the team, including Rachel, David White, Uyai, and Ken, who were part of the presentation team, and to all of our reporters who were on the field to give us live feeds as far as the two general elections were concerned, and to the wonderful men behind the crew, the camera team, and those in the control units. They've all been very, very helpful. Let's look forward to this. The rest of our programming will continue with post-election reactions starting tomorrow. Keep up with us from Rise and Shine, 7 a.m. To 9 a.m. Political Spectrum will be here, of course, from 10. We'll keep on inundating you with reports about the conclusion of this election. But thank you so much for joining us from wherever you were watching or listening to us from. It's been Nigeria Decides 2023. Thanks for joining us and have yourselves a very lovely evening. Bye for now.